All right, so we're going to look at a couple of Diego LeBlond's games, or Sultan-Diego. He also went by. Good friend of mine. I also worked with him. He was my student, and unfortunately, he died last year. He just loved the game so much, and so I think he'd probably enjoy having us look at his games and see some of his wins. Can't speak for him, but he loved it. So just want to, at the very least, we could learn from his games and try
Yeah,
to.
I'm sorry, David.
honor
That's
him.
really tough. That's really tough to lose a student and a friend.
Yeah, definitely. The community, like the chess community, was really heartbroken, and because he was, I think, 27 years old, so he's just so young.
Jeez.
And so much, so much potential, and yeah,
Was
it's
he
just
the one
such a
that,
good guy, full of life. Oh, he had been here before. Yeah,
yeah, I kind of
yeah,
remember him logging in like during a tournament and he was like, I'm
exactly.
in, that's him,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
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 at a library. So Rockville Chess Club.
yeah.
Yeah, Richard Hawk comes here sometimes. He's one of the organizers there at Rockville, Maryland, just north of DC. Yeah, so he got really, he's from that, I think, Germantown, around there. It's like suburbs north of DC in Maryland. So yeah, he started playing in earnest there a couple of years ago, I guess late 2021 maybe. And that's when I met him, actually 2021. So he was with the well, he actually revived the Howard University chess team, and now they're getting really good. I coached them for a little bit for some sessions, and now they're really coming together and becoming a, like a holistic team. And they actually won the HBCU, historically Black College Universities Classic. Wait, Leah, I know it was in Atlanta. Do you remember the name? I think it was HBCU Classic Chess Tournament, something like that, right?
Yes.
And they actually won the A section. So they're getting real good now. And he was responsible for reviving it. So there's a Washington Post article on him. Yeah, just a great guy, so full of life and inspirational. Just like had great conversations with him. So yeah, I just want to honor him. And not really any particular date for it. It's just I've been thinking of doing it. So yeah, let's take a look. So we have
David,
two games.
a question, David. Up here it says the Philidor defense. Is this what we're looking at?
Yeah, that's the one. Actually, I'll just not show the moves right now on the board. So I'll just home in.
No, I was
that
just
Zoom
wondering
feature.
if this is the Philidor defense, so I can.
Yeah, exactly. So Simon Williams talks about this. And I'm not sure exactly the move order, but it also becomes the Black Lion, if you guys have heard of that. And a lot of times you can go like H6, G5, and you can go, but the Philidor ideas would be D6 and E5, which I actually need to do myself because I've been doing small center setups, and that's okay. It's experimental, but certainly it's like modern defense kind of thing with D6. You guys may have seen this stuff where you don't quite take the whole center. But yeah, and then you'll end up playing E5. He'll end up, actually, no, it begins with E4, E5, but you can play D6 first. And then you can often play like H6 and G5 and get pretty aggressive. So Simon Williams does a course on it. Got to look into it more. It's very interesting. So you'll see how he uses it. Okay. So I'll just home in on the board so you can see it bigger. Okay. So E4, E5. So he's playing. No, so here is 1800. No, you know what it is? The other one, he's 1300. So I think it's just like different website, different number of games. He played more games on one of them with 1800. So yeah, he was 1800 here. And like I said, he gave me a hard time. So he was moving into, A class, moving towards expert. So unfortunately, it was just, his progress was cut short. But yeah, some great stuff to learn from. So D6, C3, knight C6. Yeah, E45, D6. That's the Philidor defense right away, Lynn, where it shows it there, where it said it. And then C3, knight C6, D4. So this is natural for white to do, so they can try and get the 2-pawn center. Of course, we have a lot of pressure on it, but yeah, it's kind of like a C3 Sicilian as well. White basically wants to be able to maintain that pawn on D4 as well as the pawn on E4. Okay, so he takes it right away. Then he strikes. You could probably leave it there as well, but by taking it, you create this kind of softness that you can put pressure on. You can, if you leave it there, you let them push. Let's say you go knight F6. Let's see the opening. What's the main move in the opening? Probably what he did. You can also go bishop E7, interestingly. Let's say you go knight F6, and if they push, it's not really necessarily good for white to push. It says look at this winning percentage for black. So you can allow this. And then, wow. But the idea is it's kind of like, like a King's Indian where white pushes to D5. But think about it. If white's an E4 player, they probably don't necessarily want to be playing a King's Indian, right? So it might be positive, a good transition for you, transposition. And then you can You could bring in your knight and f4 and things like that. So it's real solid. The knight will of course move. You can fianchetto your bishop or probably just move your knight and bishop b7. It's kind of like an old Indian type of thing where the bishop goes to e7. Anyway, so you can do something like that. It's very flexible. So he takes, then goes knight f6, immediately striking at the e pawn, knight c3, bishop to e7. So again, like his opponent's just developing naturally. And then he castles. We'll get off here. And Malcolm's coming in. So castles, d5. Now, hey Malcolm, welcome. How you doing?
Good morning, David. I'm doing great.
You won your game last night, right?
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah, I saw. I think you won a queen for a rook or something. I saw you. I was looking at this was the DC Chess League. That's where we chatted last night.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that looked pretty dominant. Were you up a queen for a rook or something?
I won his queen on move 15. We were doing the 2 knights variation of the Roy Lopez.
Okay. And how'd you win his queen? Just,
So
sum it up, I guess.
he was trying to dogpile on my rook on f6. I was playing as black, and he brought out his he first pinned my queen my knight that was on f6 with his bishop, and then he tried to attack it again with his queen by moving it to f3, and then like I was able to get my out from there. He didn't want to lose when I attacked his knight. With his bishop with my pawn, he didn't want to trade his bishop for a knight, and doing that, he didn't. He gave him like when I kept pushing his pawn, his bishop back. He lost space for his queen, like escaping. It blocked the escaping square for his queen.
Okay, so she got trapped.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I was actually just so when we were, briefly talking about Diego or Sultan-Diego, we were talking about how he revived Howard University's chess team, right? Which you're on. And well, Malcolm was president, right? You were president last year, before Malik, right?
Yes.
Oh, you graduated. Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
So yeah, maybe you can speak to that for a moment if you want about how. Yeah, there's a Washington Post article that talks about it. If you guys look it up, or if you want to put the link, but if someone has it. But yeah, he did a lot for the chess. I mean, just in general for the whole chess community, like around the DMV area, like Rockville Chess Club and stuff. But yeah, like wherever he was, you felt his amazing presence, right? Yeah, if you want to briefly mention, however long you want about what he's done.
Oh, he's done a lot for the club, even after he graduated. Like when he was a student, he helped. He was the main driver for creating the club on campus and like reactivating, like starting the scene. He organized the first meetings and like organized like the first what's it called, like first like brought in like first like chess tutor for the first time. Like when he brought in Zahir Muhammad, one of your former students, he brought him on campus, try to improve everyone's skills. And even after he left, he graduated. He still helped us out in the club by offering like me, Michelle, the presidents after he graduated, advice advice on how to run the club, and advice on and he'll like if we ask for help for anything, he'll always be gladly help.
Yeah, such a generous guy. And like, yeah, we just really, anywhere he went, like they were talking about at Howard commemoration for him, you see the impact, like everywhere he went, it's such like his presence was felt. He had such an impact. So yeah, really amazing person. So we're really sad, so he died so young. But yeah, I think he would enjoy this, right? I think he would enjoy us looking at his games. There's the more recent games that he played, like some really cool ones.
He'll definitely be proud of like how far the club has done and with like the things that's been what's been going on with chess in the black community. Because one of the things he wanted to was to host a HBCU chess tournament, and this year was the first time such an event happened. It wasn't hosted by Howard, but it was hosted by Morris Brown and Maurice Ashley. And I know he would have been happy to hear. He's happy to hear that Howard won that event.
Yeah, that's huge. That's the seeds that he planted. So definitely see his legacy carrying forward. And Leah, if I could say, Leah is actually from Atlanta. So I know you were like, oh, I wish I had been there, been able to make it back. But
Yes, Morris Brown is significant because it was the only HBCU that was actually founded by formerly enslaved individuals. Most of the other ones were like founded by like seed money from like missionaries or millionaires, and it was the only one founded by slaves. And there was some issues because of financial stuff that happened, and which annoys me to this day, which I won't get into, but the Morris Brown community has basically pulled the school back from insolvency, and they're working on making it fully functioning again, which is not really something you see with a lot of schools these days. It's like they run out of money, then it's like, well, that's the end of that. Whereas with them, it's like there's a spirit with them that you don't really see in most schools.
wow, thanks for sharing that too. All right, so you guys ready to jump into the rest of his game? Start opening a bit. All right, let's jump back into it. So Malcolm just reviewing, he loved the Philidor defense. Now I don't know too much about the Black Lion, but it's kind of merges right from the Philidor, sort of transpositional, right? Sometimes, as I mentioned, I think sometimes, like I know Simon Williams is like super aggressive, right? So I studied he has the course on chess.com about the accelerated Dragendorf. So it's also kind of like hybrid systems are cool because you throw your opponent off a bit. But I think it does involve, like he would do this sometimes, right? Well, in this game, he ends up doing it. But you could do like 97. Yeah, what Simon Williams, I saw some stuff, which Diego would also employ is like the knight can go to G6 and F4. So kind of like in the other line that I just quickly showed you, where the pawn pushes to D5, you invite that actually. And again, just look at that score for Black. 50s, and it got even better in some lines, depending on what they do. But like if they go bishop D3, Black is winning a lot of games. And then again, knight G6, very natural. So if you guys want to play this system, Nepomniachtchi lost to a 20. That's interesting. Back in 2015, I mean, he wasn't quite as strong as a 27. I mean, still a super GM, just 20 shy of, just above 2,700. But yeah, so you see probably his opponent went, probably they came in with the knight. So anyway, just showing you how it could go. So he decided to take, which basically would loosen up the white center. Reminds me of a recent Carlsen game, actually. And then he immediately strikes at the e-pawn. So it's kind of like, it's hyper modern in a way. You're inviting them to push. Knight C3, and you'll strike at it. Bishop comes out. Bishop C4. Castle. So, it's a tight position for Black. Black has, it's more compact, but Black will certainly solid and can strike back. And there it is. So I don't know. Oh, this is fun. Actually, it's following a game where 2,300 drew a 2,400. They played D5. But yeah, D5. Well, there's something I don't like about it. What's the main thing that you think I don't like? Like, what would you not like about it too much? It gains space, yeah, but space is only useful if you can access things. You squeeze your opponent too. But what's the drawback of this move?
Less control of the center squares. Now knight has a convenient like an outpost square on E5 or even C5.
Yeah, it's giving up those dark. Yeah, because he's on light squares, he's giving up dark squares. And actually, like I mentioned earlier, when he took on D4, he created that kind of looseness. So it used to be a C3 pawn covering. Well, C3 pawn doesn't cover D4 anymore. So whether the pawn's there or not, D4 is technically weak. Like you'll see that in the King's Indian. This is like an old Indian kind of thing in a way. But in the King's Indian, when Bishop G7, you'll often get the knight, like maybe with E5 or C5, like you can grab that D4 square. But that is still a weak square. Keep in mind. Like let's say things blow open. Hey, there's not out of, well, certainly Bishop F6 can happen, but you never know. There might be a trade in that Bishop C5, Bishop can come out. So those things are actually not completely like remote possibilities. And then we have stuff like the knight kind of, doing a little roundabout, ending up on E5. And like I said, obviously F4 squares. So there's a lot of dark squares that Black can take control of. Now White has light squares, but there's pressure on E4 though. Rook E8 will obviously come probably pretty soon. And also one more thing, so dark squares giving up some squares. There's one more thing in terms of White's piece activity. What's that? It's a tempo though. I mean, it doesn't really matter if you're going to move your knight in the middle. What else in terms of piece activity for White?
blocked off.
B4 is weak.
You said, Lynn, you said B4, B as in boy?
Uh-huh. B4 is weak square.
Well, then I can hop right in, ready to go right away. Mhm.
Oh, you
You
said for white.
can kick them back, but maybe then you could just say as for dark squares, and then maybe wrap to C, or even if you go to C5, you can play A5. If you wrap around, A5 would make it harder, like let's say you wrap around, like Malcolm said, then the A5 would make it hard to play B4. So
Oh, you said
what about the bishop
for white. Okay.
for white? What about the well, I think I heard Todd. Todd, what'd you say about the bishop?
Yeah, right now it doesn't have too much scope.
It's just biting, we say biting on granite. Yeah, it used to have good scope on F7, maybe the knight. Well, I mean, it's not like you have anything right away, but it's there. Maybe if white blows it open, like white probably wants F4 here. Like maybe, oh, well, maybe white should play knight G4. Let's see. That's my hunch actually, that after the knight moves, maybe white should play knight G4. You know, centralize the bishop or something, castle, maybe run the F pawn. That's kind of typical. It'd be like a Benoni, where black is more, you know, compact. I mean, ideally, white would like to smash the center open if they're given time. But of course, hyper-modern style, black will encourage that, kind of egg him on and try to strike back. Okay, so he goes to E5. And funny, yeah, this actually follows the game that I see over here on the right. It was a draw. See, 81, back in 81, white took and they drew. So yeah, it takes, but there you go. See, you already have the bishop coming out right away. Oh, actually, now see, it's funny. Just to show you real quick, it transposes. And now black wins. Oh, what? Black, that's crazy. A 1900 beat a 2600. Huge
Wow.
upset. Wow, that is, you don't see an upset like that too often. Like almost a 700 point upset. Wow, that's the one that won. So, but you can see this is not that great for white because the bishop's looking very good. I mean, you know, white will try to pin it, but white will try to play F4 later too. But hey, the bishop's going to be aiming in. So you can see though, clearly you have dark squares versus light squares. Let's say you pin the knight. You can try to win the E pawn or like go A6, B5, B4. So you can definitely put a lot of pressure on them and your bishops will be pretty good. Bishop D7, or obviously that's not bad to go to G4, but bishop D7, a lot of people think that's passive, but it patrols both sides of the board. So you can maybe strike at them. So yeah, black's looking pretty good if the bishop gets out, but it can come out at any moment. Okay, so he goes C6. Yeah, he chooses to strike. The one where black won, by the way, that was rook E8. That's fine too. But yeah, he's just, you know, striking immediately makes sense.
So when I'm black in a position like this, I feel like white always gets a pass pawn there on the D file, and when I'm white, I just will always lose that D pawn.
Oh, so if you're on the black side, it could work against you if assuming they get to shove it and get a thorn in your side. But
Yeah.
if you're playing with white, they're like you'll lose it on D6 or they'll take it on D5 or something.
Yeah, I'll just
It can work against you on both sides, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Especially with B5, B4 again, if they undermine the knight, when the knight, get rid of the knight, undermine the pawn. Well, the thing with black, which you can do if you're playing from the black side, one is you can try to blockade it, ideally with the knight, which you can do. Well, you could even do that without playing C6. Sometimes you can play knight here. That's one way you can go, well, with or without it. But also, what you can do is when you take it, like you probably have to move your king over, probably blockade it again, but you can play F5 too, whether like first or later. But basically, whenever that happens, when the pawn leaves, so it basically gives white less central control, and then black can later go F5 and start steamrolling him. It's like a Scotch gambit. Usually, white will do that. If you've seen Scotch gambits where the pawn's gone, yes, get rid of the E pawn, try and do that. So that's one way you can handle it. Just give you an idea with black to go for F5. Now, as for white. Yeah, if you're gonna don't push basically for white, you know, you'd want to be well centralized. Your rook, you can use the C file, right? C file action going on. Whether or not black plays, they don't play C6, you still attack C7. Get your pieces out there, and then I would play for D6 or just blow it open, right? Maybe you go B4, B5, chip at it like a minority attack where you got like the 2 against 3, chip at it. So does that make sense? Get some ideas you can use there.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, just test it out. Okay, so C6. Yeah, ideally you want to be the one on the other side of it. Okay, so B5. He does that. Yeah, he does B5. Bishop B3. And then here. Now, if the rook weren't there, he'd win the E pawn. So at least the rook's there. He doesn't win the E pawn yet. But this is a very interesting idea that he does. He's shifting the pawn structure. Now, yeah, speaking to the idea of taking it. Now here, yeah, he determines that that's kind of not going to help him. Well, there would be the pass. Well, either way, they're gonna have a pass pawn. He is gonna blockade it. Whether it's protect, well, if you push, it's like a solid protected pass pawn. But again, it gets in the way of the bishop. So it's kind of blessing and a curse sort of thing. But if you take, keep in mind also, if you take it, well, there's well, you get rid of the c6 pawn, which is not really not ideal, but for you to have there, you can take it also. So you have to deal with that. But if you take it and the pawn takes back, there might be a drawback for black there as well. What's that? Where what's white's piece activity?
All the lines.
Queen.
Yeah.
What's that?
The queen. I mean, the knight and the queen.
Specifically, the d5 on the d5 pawn.
Yes.
Well, you have pressure there. I mean, ideally, you'd have a bishop there to look. You can do that too. Maybe even right away. That's a move. But as for regarding white's position, white actually gains something. I think it's something that black has to worry about. Envision the pawn here. By moving from e4 to d4, well, effectively you're punching a hole on c6 and e4. Just imagine those pawns have been wiped off because you're really trading those pawns off, not the d pawn, right? Effectively, you're replacing your d pawn with the e pawn. So if the e pawn's missing, then what can white do? Try to do?
Is it more space for the rook with a half open file?
A half open file, and therefore the problem for black. Well, just in general, it's good. Kind of like we talked about how it's not good for white to block his bishop. Hey, at least he opens the rook. And now maybe, well, especially if they take, no, not gonna, no, it's gonna be like this. But if they push, they can open it later. So at least the bishop can reroute. Oh yeah, actually they can move it, reroute here. So the bishop can find a new avenue, but the rook by opening up, well, it has an idea right away, apart from a rook lift, which is annoying. Actually, you can do that now, my bad, but he has more access. But the other thing about the half open file is what? Well, let's just say it happens. I'll just do it. He didn't play this, but assuming this happened, what's the thing that white can do now? We'll try to do, which is very annoying for black.
Can you
Take
take the
the
pawn?
Right, just exposes the pawn. And I guess, well, a natural way to deal with it is here, but then he runs into the pin, I think. Looks a little, yeah. So white has a nice initiative. Both have about the same development. I mean, it's not terrible. You can still get bishop e7. I mean, it might be about even, but certainly white has a space advantage. And you have to worry about this. I'm curious. Let's see a computer evaluation. Maybe it favors white a bit. Let's see what it says. Yeah, about half. So slightly better, it thinks. Not bad. Oops, not bad here, but still, it's a little now going to the human perspective. It's just uncomfortable because you're pinned and there's nothing really clear to do about it. That's the problem. And you can't. You just moved your bishop away, so you can't go back because you lose the pawn, right? Unless you were to play here or something. I don't know. But that's still a problem. So you can see just a little differences in pawn structure, and that's a huge part of chess mastery, which again, last night didn't work out too well for me. It was a shift in pawn structure. I was playing a bit of a dubious. I need to go back to my, you probably saw me losing last night, Malcolm. I don't know if you saw the bad position because you were right near me. I saw his good position, but yeah, I don't know if you saw it, but I went for something experimental, went wrong move order, but I'm just going to go, but I was playing like a small center. So kind of similar to this in a way. You play e5 anyway. I'm gonna stick to the basics, but yeah, this works out well for him here. So c5. This is what he ends up doing. So rather than taking back, exposing the pawn, he could leave it there with bishop e7, but it's clear what he's doing now. It's becoming clarified. So he is leaving the pawn there, as Saul, as you mentioned. It's a protected pass pawn, but if it could be blockaded, not a huge deal. And remember, you can always do e8 to d6. He blockades with the bishop, which is fine, grabbing the dark squares. Even though the bishop looks like it's blocked, like in a King's Indian, which is blocked on g7 by the e-pawn, he still has some ideas. Also, you've gained a queenside majority. So if white's not careful, maybe like bishop comes out, maybe like a5, a4, and then like bishop might follow, and maybe play like c4, maybe back it up with your rook. So the c4 idea can be very strong. You could even like typical ideas of like transferring the knight to c5. Again, watch out for that. Yeah, you can see now you got d6. Watch out for d6, of course. But even there, not a huge deal. Just keep that pawn blockaded. That's very important. But yeah, he blockades it very soon. So bishop c4. Well, there's white blockading the c4 pawn. Not a bad idea because, yeah, black's on dark squares, so it does weaken the light squares. So he's moving a little bit, not a huge deal. Then he does the a5 idea, gain some space there. Well, there you go again. White's just trying to lock down the light squares. because that's clearly where his pawns are. But it's pretty much we have dark square game versus light square game, but very, it's become a very much like a D pawn opening, like an old Indian. Again, King's Indian be like with a bit locked up center with the bishop on G7. Old Indian is where the bishop goes to E7. So kind of like Philidor's defense with bishop E7 versus bishop G7. It's a modern defense. Anyway, just some distinction. So H6. There you go. So now he doesn't have to worry about the pin anymore. That was smart because, like we talked about with bishop D6, you got the pin. Now he precludes all that. Bishop B2 doesn't have to worry about it. And then, well, the bishop, oh, okay, I like what white did too. Not bad for the bishops, right? That's a good idea. It's putting up some good resistance and making him worry about. So he's like, I got the light squares. That's solid. Let me attack the dark squares. And like I said, sometimes white will strike with F4, try to take over the whole center. That's dangerous, right? So this is a great move, bishop D6 after the preparatory H6. Again, we don't have this. And now, blockading the pawn. Again, bishop's not great right now, but like in a King's Indian, it will often, it looks like a pawn, but it's strengthening everything. And not to say, just like before, remember it had options to come out. It doesn't mean it's there forever. Like, again, if a trade happens and you're making it hard for them to play F4 in some cases, but you can reroute it later too. But you'll see how he handles this. The queen D3, it's really nice. Knight H7, I put an exclamation mark on that move. Really nice maneuver. Well, on both of them, really, I like it. Well, really it begins with the H6 idea. It's really brilliant conception there. So you see, because H6, it's consistent, right? So you're stopping bishop G5, grabbing some more dark squares. You are allowing knight to H7, right? Sometimes even bishop G5. Knight combine, and again, and by not having the pin, it allows bishop D6 more easily. So it has like multi-pronged move, right? Really nice move. And then obviously he's planning on this. This is the whole conception here, and you can reroute. And he has F5 immediately as well. So before white, I think white should have tried F4 at some point, because the idea is if you take, you have a E5 maybe. So he probably should have tried that at some point. But now black gets there first, so he strikes with F5. And then again, we really have like a king. If you guys familiar with the King's Indian, where black pushes those pawns on the king side?
Yeah, I'm trying to learn it.
Oh yeah, we practiced it a bit, right? We did our sparring game in that, Nikki. Yeah, he's basically getting King's Indian. It's becoming that. It's just bishops on D6 instead of G7. So very similar. And again, look, you could go to H4 sometimes, create like a mating net. You can even like sack the bishops. Some Nakamura game, I think like that. He sacks a knight or a bishop, queen follows through. Because you take back, you might have like a mating attack with the queen coming. So you have a lot of ideas there. You have the G5, G4, very common, King's Indian idea. So he does all of that really nicely. But it all begins with how he understands the pawn structure. This is the prelude to all that, right? So F4, he locks it up. It's more, again, like the bishop, it's important to understand, like, yeah, the bishop's not great, but neither is white's. That kind of cancels out. Now this bishop, even though this is biting on granite itself, at least that's your opponent's granite, right? Better than your own granite, you know what I mean? Because at least this way, well, that pawn's only guarded by a bishop. So at least he can establish pressure. Hoyle can establish pressure on the E5 pawn. This one can't do anything. Whereas this is the so-called bad bishop, but it clings on to dark squares. Then obviously the C8 bishop's awesome. And it's interesting how in the King's Indian, that bishop will just kind of hang back, just hang on C8. But it's ready to sack on H3 or something, right? Well, obviously you just have the preparation as well. Just push the pawns, that's what it did. But that bishop's ready to help out, right?
It's kind of amazing how quickly things got so bad for white, how they can't move any pieces very well.
Yeah, they're kind of petrified, and it's just very interesting lock up light squares versus dark squares. So again, what I was getting at though is it's more than just the bishop, right? This bishop might do something later, but this is bad, this is bad. So that kind of cancels out. And their bishop's looking at us on E5, he's looking at Diego's pawn, but he's not going to give him the pawn. It's already guarded once. I don't think white can escalate the attack on E5. Obviously, you can play Queen E7. We'll keep our rook ready. You don't need to guard with the rook, but the queen might, but you don't need to. You just don't need to. Practically speaking, is there a way? No. There's just no way that white can touch the pawn. Maybe white can try like A3, but that's probably what I would try, at least attempt that. You don't really want to play G, just looking at all the possibilities. I mean, it's either A3 or G3. Don't really want to go G3 because that's where usually don't want to play, a rule of thumb, don't play on the side where you're weaker. Well, clearly this is where black is playing. Now over here, there's some weaknesses. White can try and play A3, I think. But G3, well, that just weakens the F3 pawn. Blast it open, maybe bishops come. Yeah, I mean, look at this. He's got all the forces coming over. And again, the bishop, maybe the rook can like slide that way. Little savvy rook maneuver, bishop king. So you can see this. If you have like 5 pieces aiming at your opponent's king, like they might just be done, right? 1, 2, well, you can have these 5 coming and the bishop, you can have them all 6 coming in a few moves. So anyway, really nice setup. And like you said, Saul, it's amazing within how many moves? The C5 idea, right? So he begins with C5, then he reorganizes his pieces, but it's 1, 2, and this move just supports. I mean, A4, like, look, he's kind of like an Abotvinnik system, which you liked as well. Like, let's say there's a pawn here, but there's not, but you have pawns, you have pawns going both ways, right? It's kind of like what I was getting is like if it's a pawn chain this way, but effectively gets the pawn chain. Again, the bishop does act kind of like the base, right? But when you have the pawn chains, aiming in both directions, yeah, you can certainly play on the queen side too. Why not? We also, yeah, it just gives him some space. Okay, so that's move 1, then 2, 3, 4, 5, and then on move 6, he's already, and then by 7, so 6, 7 moves later, he's already completely transformed the position, and now he's just ready to attack in the style of, in the spirit of a King's Indian, G5, G4, and then H5. Yeah, that's nice. You don't need to, this is a very important idea. It just shows his patience, You can play G3 certainly at some point. I don't know if that would work yet. But there's no rush. There isn't. You can play G3, Queen H4. There's ideas like that when they go H3. You're probably seeing this with the bishop sacks. But he can do that whenever he wants. Well, interestingly, White does play G3, which is, again, playing on the side where he's weaker. He's going to get his king out of there. So Black is ready to meet that. I mean, yeah, I guess he could. It's be interesting. Maybe he can try that at some point. But I think he gets it in later. He gets the action there later. But this is certainly a plan as well. Just have to be ready for it. So he's just preparing. Fischer, interestingly, there's a Fischer game. Yeah, we was talking about that, the power of doing H5, then G4, and just leaving it there for a little bit. Keep the tension, because the moment you trade that off, like, well, first of all, you open his rook, but you'd be giving up, again, these are the ones, if you take and they take, you're not really trading the F pawn. You're effectively trading the G pawn for the G pawn when all is said and done, right? And you're giving up your pawn, which is moved up, you're moving into their 5th rank, and they're only on their 2nd rank, right? So it just benefits your opponent to take at the moment. So no need to do anything. He's really patient. And then there comes the knight. Look at that, brilliant. And again, it reminds me, do you guys know the Fischer game? It's the same thing, just different maneuver. You know the Fischer game? So he went like this, right? Where he goes from G6 and he retreats to H8. And then actually that's the same game where he gives commentary on H5. Goes to H8, F7, G5. Do you guys recall that? I think I've shown it to you a while ago. I don't know if you guys were there or not.
I don't remember the Fischer game. Who was his opponent?
It may have been Korchnor. I can pull it up. If you look on my studies under El Tenedor, it was a pawn break. Yeah, I'll pull it up real quick. I'll just remind me. But if you look at El Tenedor pawn breaks, or if you Google it, yeah, type in El Tenedor pawn breaks Lee chess. I think it'll probably pull it from Lee chess. But yeah, I just put I found some cool Fischer games and stuff. There's actually one, which, to be fair, I put one where he loses as well to Reshevsky. So you see both sides of it. It's a really nice idea. So he's using this kind of Fischer-esque thing here, right? So, but yeah, this idea of rerouting to G5, just different way of doing it. And then a nice move. And it's like, oh, you're walking. It's actually very smart the way he did this. Because like, oh, you're walking into the queen. Well, that's not relevant right now, right? She's biting on granite. But think about it. If you're going to do, if you have choices for your king, are you going to go to H8, H7, or F7? Clearly, this is the best move. So really sophisticated move. Why do you think this is better than just sort of prophylactically in terms of like, I mean, it's a prophylactic move sometimes to move your king, but like this is the correct prophylactic move, even though the queen's X rank, but that's moot, right? She's not getting there. So why do you think this, for example, is better than F7 or H8? What are the drawbacks of those moves? It's important to see that.
Dave, what's he trying to accomplish by moving his king right now? Like,
oh yeah, well, there's a few. Well, okay, let's see. Well, I guess we'll see what not to do, why that would maybe hurt him. But also it might, well, it's funny enough. I mean, really, it's amazing because whether he's on G8, H8, or F7, there are drawbacks. The only place where unless you play maybe Rook F7 and hide behind it, but that doesn't seem highly mobile, right? You want to stay as mobilized as you can. This is a nice idea. But let's talk about why the other one. First of all, being on the G file. Why do you probably not want to be on the G file?
I was wondering, yeah, why can't he move to like G7 and then bring his rook to H8?
Okay. Well, let's see, how does he do it? Let me double check out. We'll look at how he actually does it. But well, here's the thing. They all have their drawbacks. So H7, well, it's kind of, well, actually, you probably could go rook H8 and then move it later, Todd, and you can also, well, here's the thing, you can also do rook lifts. So you can get to the H file no matter what, right? I mean, ideally, sometimes it's funny, if you have a totally locked up position, sometimes your king is best placed, like, what if he were on E7? He can probably do that. But here's the problem, this runs in, let's look at all of them. G7 runs into the bishop, right? But that's more relevant because that's, like I said, the pressure on the dark squares is actually something. There's nothing here for them, right? But the pressure on here is actually something. There might be some tactics there. You just have to worry, like, what if the queen does something tricky? Like, that's always a thing. Queen B1 to A1 is a little sneaky, right? So what if there's like some capture, like they take F4 in the future? Like, this is all, that's the idea of prophylactic moves. They're not in front of you, but they're very remote possibilities. But you don't want that, right? Don't give them that option, like, even if it's a very, very unlikely option. But that's kind of a cool, actually, if I were playing white, I'd think about it, right? I mean, the queen's not doing anything. She may as well back up the bishop and like look at it, trying to be a little, mean on that diagonal. But yeah, so first of all, if you're on G7, you're walking into this stuff. No need for that. If you're on H7, you're not, right? So you can immediately see some superiority. Oh, there's another thing that's probably inferior about being on G7. What's the other problem with being on G7 or G8? Well, that kind of gives it away. But no, G8, as for this one, actually, no, that gets to the bishop. But G8 or G7, there's a few drawbacks of everything. What are the drawbacks of being on G7 or G8, though? That's common to those.
Yeah, the queen bishop battery.
What's that, Todd?
Queen bishop battery, like you just showed us.
Well, yeah, no, that's the problem on the diagonal. And there's something common to these two moves. Well, the other thing is that, well, we'll talk about that later. I want you guys to find it's really important. Like, everything he's done, like I'm saying, this is a really masterful game. It's really nice to learn from, because you see all the stuff he did structurally to kind of, basically what he did is he like kind of, I guess, hoodwinked him or something, right? He kind of manipulated his opponent and achieved something that he wanted. Like, again, this is coming out of an E4 opening. So my thinking on that is, assuming your opponent's like a hardcore E4 player, they probably don't want to play against a king. I mean, who likes to play against a King's Indian if black achieves a favorable version? So basically what he's doing is he's sort of transposed into like a sort of hybrid type, like an offbeat King's Indian. It looks really nice for him. And psychologically, or in terms of preparation, he's doing it against an E4 player, which certainly has a chance of throwing white off. So he throws him off in terms of white's general prep, possibly. At least there's a chance there, some statistically, as well as just having objectively speaking, more importantly, just having a good position, transpositionally, right, out of an E4 opening. So he gets all this, and white, what he's done a great job, because in a what is the main counter? Oh, real quick, what's the main counterplay, the source of counterplay for white in a King's Indian? What do you guys know? What is the main source of counterplay for white, or kind of where is white still main?
It's usually attacking the queen side of the board with the pawn pushes.
Yep.
Now
exactly.
white has no way to push their pawns or attack the queen side.
Precisely, he's blockading the C pawn, but maybe you'd prefer to have a knight there. The bishop can't go anywhere really. Yeah, he goes here and blocks. I mean, watch out for the loose bishop. Oh, maybe he could try that. Okay, to be fair, but that's going to take him a while, and he's about to get mated. Like I said, even G3 is very dangerous, right? Okay, you're not ready to sack yet because the queen can guard laterally. But anyway, but yeah, that stuff can come soon enough, right? Some pawn pushes. But again, well, okay, we'll get to that. But basically, it's a favorable version. There's a lot going on. It's a favorable version of a King's Indian defense, largely because white doesn't have any counterplay. He has all the play, right? And he's forcing white. He's kind of forcing white to feel the need to congest themselves over here. And they're congested over here. So yeah, white's very congested. Black has a space advantage on both sides of the board. White's only space advantage is D5, but like I said about pushing the pawn, the space is only really useful, one, if you can utilize it, and two, if you can restrict your opponent. So because chess is about, well, the way I view it, the way that I view it in terms of understanding it theoretically is, or kind of generalizing it in a useful way, is that you're trying to maximize your forces, minimize your opponent's forces. So he's maximized his pawns. White has maximized in terms of playing D5, but it minimizes his bishop, right? So he's got everything he wants here anyway. And what else are we talking about? Oh yeah, all the ways in which the things he's carried out, the way he's gotten this favor. It's huge though. Understanding the pawn structure, achieving a favorable structure, sort of transpositionally, having the dark square control, doing the knight h6, brilliant. Actually, I'm gonna put a double expand because h6, I mean, assuming it were, sometimes it's just, I'd say a brilliant move because like it's all connected. Assuming that was whether I assume it was a plan, we can't know exactly what he's thinking, but it was all connected, Where was h6 or knight h7? No, h6, I didn't put anything there. That's really h6 is the move that's really the one that kind of uncorked it, began the whole thing. And then knight h7 is a good move, but that was already kind of known by him, right? So the good moves, sometimes like the forcing moves are like the ones that look like the coolest move is it's a follow through. So I think the first move is brilliant because he knew what was happening. Again, multi-purpose move with h6, right? As we saw. Then f5 nice before white got to play f4, maybe to mix things up. I think white should have tried that to blast things up, and they didn't. So he's like, okay, I'm getting you first. Then clearly he has his domain on the king side, so white has to be careful there. And then now we've talked about some of the improve the knight. We've talked about some of the reasons behind king h7. So another brilliant. That's the second brilliant move, I think. Prophylactic move, really nice. And then
I think he did that, David, because it gives them more cover for that bishop up there, because you said h8 and g7 wouldn't really be good because he would still be in a line of fire.
Yes.
So
well, there's a
gives
second.
him-
Well, what's the other thing about the line of fire? Bishops, what's the other thing, Lynn, about? Oh, sorry to interrupt. What about those two? G8 and G7.
The rook.
Oh, yeah, the rook. And what else were you saying? Sorry, Lynn.
No, I was just saying that the bishop, sitting up there on b2 is a line of fire. So the king wouldn't want to go to h8 or either g7. So he would go to h7. And the bishop is on a black square and the king is on a white square. So he was
Precisely.
safe. He's safe.
Precisely. And going back to, so whether it's G7 or H8, we can rule those out because no, we don't want to be in the line of the bishop. So if you're choosing between H8 and H7, so clearly, is this more dangerous or this one? Clearly the dark squares are more dangerous because we know it's locked in place. This is, but again, we talked about this idea, but just in general, it's just not necessary because the bishop's there. Now, another thing, if you stay on G8 or go to F7, one thing, if you stay here, you got to watch out. Maybe G3 is actually something, right? Because the rook can do some tricks on the G file. We don't need that. We don't know for sure, but why even think about it, right? We don't. The nice thing about it's like if you play H6 in general or G6 or whatever, H3, you don't know if the mate's you don't know if you're gonna have a back rank mate, but we don't want to worry about a back rank mate, right? That's the idea behind the prophylactic move. You don't need to see it yet. You just preclude the whole thing from happening. Okay, now King F7. Those two things about the light square bishop. So let's say you want to reroute your bishop. You might want to go to H4 or something, or maybe you end up pushing F3 later. You might want to come here and come in this way, right? Something like that. I mean, not now, but again, in the future. So if you ever move your bishop, D6 check is coming. And then they actually then they really get the thing that Saul's worried about, right? Then it's going to work nicely. The bishop's unleashing, bishop's happy, and they probably win your bishop or something by attacking. So anyway, yeah. So you got to keep your keep your blockade, but two, let's just get away from there. Now, as for being on, yes, that's F7 or G8, runs into the bishop. Oh, and by the way, look at the rooks. I don't want to be in the line of the rooks either. It's just X-ray stuff going on, right? So, but when you're on H7, that's the only move that deals with both bishops on these diagonals. Because again, this is not going to move probably. The E-pawn is the least likely to move in the near future. It's going to take a long time, right? This is more likely to move, and this is more likely to be taken. Therefore, H7, and you get away from the rooks. So you see it has, again, multi-purpose, where there's multiple reasons why you should play that move. So it's a very deep move, right? It shows the understanding. Plus, you want to move it anyway because you might, there are situations where you go behind, then move it back again, but not here, right? Here it would make more sense to do a rook lift, most likely. You could do that, but then you have to walk back to your king. We've already determined we don't want that. So probably rook lift, maybe queen comes in later. I think that's what happened. So we have bishop. Oh, here we go. As I said, the bishop comes out. Why not? And then he just keeps going on him. Well, here's the thing. Again, now that you're off the line, that wouldn't have been really possible earlier, but you can blast it open with H3 at some point now. Slash again, G3 with a piece. That's what Fisher, again, very similar to Fisher's game, where he gets the, I think, sack on H3 and stuff. Nakamura has an awesome game. I think it was Nakamura, maybe it's versus Wesley So. Here's an amazing, I think it's So versus Nakamura, amazing game to look at. So same structure. Okay. Oh, it's funny. I just mentioned that. Yeah. I'm like, oh, well, may as well get the knight on C4. What does he do about it? He just ignores it because Oh, look, there actually, that's the way that he created pressure on e5, but he lets him take the bishop, right? He doesn't, yeah, and again, like there's no need to move the rook out because the rook probably wants to do some stuff here. But yeah, so he just has to guard for a moment. That's fine. No need to let him. We do not want to, but as you can see, if we were on H8, that would be a big problem, right? So at least we cover that. Takes. Okay, that was our, even though it was fortifying things, like that wasn't a great bishop, right? Like we're pretty happy with that. I mean, let's compare. So our light square bishop is better than his light square bishop. I mean, he can go, even if he goes to c6, interestingly, you can play rook a7 and lift. Like really, that's a superficially good bishop, right? Because even though he's like, usually they say a bishop, a quote bad bishop behind the pawn chain could become good, but in this case he can quote become quote good. But once you move your rook, does it really do anything? It stops you from going to those squares, just go around them, right? So it's actually not that good. It's kind of a waste of time. He goes knight c4 to take on d6. They go here, but then they get rid of your, yeah, it was a bad bishop. But again, it did guard e5. So you have a little careful about e5. That's true. But you know, yeah, again, it'll take him 2 moves to look at it. In the meantime, though, you're gonna have an initiative. We have initiative brewing here. And if he decides to take this one, well, then he's got a real problem on e4. Plus, you have the thrusts of h3 and h3 and f3 coming if he decides to take. So this pawn's kind of effectively blockading your f pawn, right? So anyway, a lot going on here. And there he goes. Yeah, see, like I said, you probably don't want to. That might have been a losing move. But I mean, hey, you can't really blame them, right? Even if they're a very strong player, like it's very hard to handle this. You know, just put pressure. The attacker, as Kasparov says, the attacker's advantage. So G3 is sort of understandable, but like I said, don't play on the side where you're weaker. Things are starting to collapse. Well, why? Okay, tell me, at least, obviously, well, look, we're on the H file now. So we're away from the rooks. And we could swing. Oh, yeah, the queen's ready too, isn't she? She could swing, the rook could swing. So we can get them more easily. It's like a one-way street for us, right? If we have that space advantage, we can marshal our forces quickly. We have the benefit of maneuverability, which the space advantage confers, right? So we have all these advantages. But G3 fundamental, even just from a positional, tactically it's bad. But why is G3 even bad, like from a positional perspective? Let's say the kings are on the other side of the board. Why structurally is this a bad move?
King is blocked in, number one, and he's open with G2. So, well, that's what I see.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if the H pawn takes, you know, he takes back with the pawn and the queen comes in and doesn't seem like it's that far away from mate.
So tactically, again, you can see what he did there. Like, again, it would have been a little uncomfortable being on the G file, but now we're off there. Now we're the one who's exploiting the H file. And they did help us with that. All right. They really did help us here. They helped Diego, or playing well from his perspective. But what's the other problem? It really is a lot of problems. And then, as you said, essentially weakening the light squares. He does he's trying to get an escape hatch, right? They're trying to get an escape hatch, but well, we're not going to let them get away too far. But what's the other problem here? Which squares are also becoming more accessible? Well, think about the pawns. I'm looking for something in particular. Think about the specific change from some positional concept that Nimzovich talked about. Think about the exact change. Well, he's helping us do this.
Well, if he moves to G3, then the H pawn just takes him. And I know the other H pawn is not gonna take him back because he was totally be exposed. So then the queen could just swing right over and like he said, soon it's gonna be a mate.
Well, okay, let's combine that with another factor, and it's just compounding. It's overwhelming. What's the other factor though? Think about the specific difference. Now you're talking about dark squares. Absolutely. There's one other thing I kind of hinted at it.
He could push the H pawn and lock his king in.
Actually, I would challenge you on that, because then we would okay, there's that question, like if you push a wing pawn, should you make it a splinter or should you take? That always comes up, right? In this case, I would argue that you should probably take, like we've been looking at, and you looked at as well. But no, true, because well, what you're getting at is that the light squares are weak. So you can do that, but we have even better, right? It's just an option. Yeah, absolutely. But there's something else, guys. No, what about the king? No, in this case, like I said, you know, as a thought experiment, let's say the kings are pretty safe, like on B1 or A1, and like we're on B6 or something. No one's touching our kings. We're focusing on the strategy the deep pawn structure ideas here. Not, and again, yes, this stuff, but not only G3. What else? Not only on the G3 side.
Oh, well, it would be very daring to capture the F pawn with either the pawn or the knight. It
Why is
would be very daring,
Well,
but
like, let's say you go knight takes F3. What's wrong with that?
well, knight takes F3.
I mean, certainly it's worth considering. Or G takes, but yeah, let's say knight takes.
Well,
Now,
he's in
maybe
danger right
maybe
away.
even after, like maybe like a specific line, you know, we have to look at a specific line yet, but it might be like taking G3 first and then taking F3 / Queen H6. But again, fundamentally though, what about the F3 pawn? The whole pawn chain, really, that's what I'm getting at. See what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
What's going on with you? How does that
So,
affect
so,
things?
so maybe the
Okay.
G pawn would take F3.
But what, okay, that's the move, like, yes, you can do it, but what's the positional concept that's going on? What, in other words, why is this, White is understandably doing this because they're uncomfortable. They're actually probably trying to flee, and they're just talking about Todd. Maybe this is a good move too, but interestingly, they can't flee, but we can't access them as easily. Maybe.
He
We
weakened
have
the
to like
base of
work
his
our way
pawn
in.
chain.
What's that?
He weakened the base of his pawn chain?
Yes, that's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
The Nimzovich idea is you should attack the pawn chain at the base. Well, so position, like, let's say, like I said, like, just imagine this like a dragon and you flip the board like an English, right? Or whatever, if you're flipping it, but like where you're attacking, let's say this is the queen side, for example, you can play A3. It's like, you know, if you're playing a dragon, it's kind of like going like this, right? Weakening B2 and then C3, and then, you know, so in a close Sicilian, again, just think about the other side. But just imagine we're attacking, you know, it's a bonus that their king is right behind it. But imagine we play this, the whole thing crumbles. That's the Nimzovich concept, like from my system. Definitely recommend that one. It's known as kind of like long-winded, but no, definitely my system is a classic. You got to read the classic, you know, couldn't hurt. But H3, but he did it for us. They played G3 for us. And now, so now F3 is instantly weak. And if you take F3 of the, you know, then like imagine you get this one, you got like Queen G6. So it's kind of like what they're trying to do to E5, but we might get them quicker. But again, we're actually accessing their king in the process. But if nothing else, hey, let's just maybe take this one first. Well, the thing is, what can happen is when you check them, it actually works out like a kind of combinationally, because when he goes King G2, you can take a check on F3 with the pawn if you want. And the bishop comes to G4, right? So it all kind of just blows up, cascading over. And so his king, and this is kind of the foreshadowing what's going to happen. But this is a blunder. This has to be a strategic blunder, if not purely tactical. So, you know, but it's understandable. They made a blunder, but that's going to happen when you put so much pressure on them. You can look at the computer. Let's see, the computer says they should just take on G4 first, maybe, because this pawn's rolling in. But after here, yep, it's like maybe it gives White a chance. If they take, they have to play perfectly, right? G3 says -6 because it's just a mating attack that's coming now. So and he executes it perfectly. So G3 takes. But see, now with the check, he has to come up. See, then you get this check. Yeah, I think that's correct. Because if you do the queen check, he's running quickly. They're coming out quickly, right? When you do this check, and again, I suppose the rook can take and they get mated almost. That's actually interesting. Let's look at that. When he runs, okay, let's find the finish. Okay, what do you think he did after? Yeah, we'll look at two things. We'll see what would have happened had the rook taken. That's going to be bad. Yeah, that's going to be pretty bad. I think it's losing. But how did he? Let's see. His opponent resigned in 4 more moves. So what did he do after King F2? Yeah, there might be more than one way to win this.
Move
But
the knight over to H3.
yeah, that's exactly what he did. Nice, you get a fork. Well, if you don't do it, I mean, the king is going to start running. So, oh, I guess you can go check. That's probably another way. By check and take. But then again, like it makes sense to get rid of his rooks, because you know then you're going to dominate those lines. Well, if you're not careful, yeah, they will get some counterplay. So yeah, let's get rid of the rook. Nice move. Ooh, yeah, that king is coming out. That king is, you know, walking out there in the line of danger. So he takes this one.
Bye, Leah.
Oh, Leah, you want to see the, Leah, that's the last move. Oh, she missed it. Oh yeah, no, I think she got the idea. Queen H2 check, and I think they resign. Yes, they resign. Oh, well, he's scooping up more material. If he's not mating, no, I mean, it's just easy. That point, it's done. Well, what's gonna happen next? It's more the material, it's continue, it's probably mate. And you notice, interestingly, these central pawns create a mating net. Because, well, a mating net is usually a combination of your pawn and their pawn, right? So their pawn is keeping their king at bay, and then you're covering, how many squares are you covering with your pawns, right? So they're very much in a mating net, and then you just need a couple pieces to come afterwards. Sometimes you even mate like with queen f2. If they were on e3, you'd have a queen f2 mate because of the mating net. So what's going to happen next? I don't know. What are the moves for the king? Let's say, well, everything's bad. Let's say he goes here.
Queen f7, queen f2.
Oh yeah, there's your instant mate. Yeah, you could even go. I was like, oh, you could even go like check and then mate. Yeah, you're right. You have an immediate mate. That's nice. Okay. Where else can they go? Let's say here. The easiest, I think it's pretty much mating. Yeah, but the easiest way is what?
Yeah, you can just take the rook, the
Just
queen.
take the rook. Yeah, don't get baited by the bishop, because you can just take the rook with check, right? And if you want to go back, okay, we just take the queen with check with the rook. Okay, that's done very quickly. But then I feel like it's going to be mating pretty well. I mean, you got to win the queen. They got to part with the queen after this check. And then yeah, it might not be mate like until a few moves, but that's good enough for me. Takes, well, actually we can get a new queen just for fun. If you want. Yeah, they can't stop you from, you could pin it. Yeah, and then you can get a new queen and then mate them. Or you could do a little savvy rook maneuver. You can come here. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of like the idea of getting a new queen and quickly mate them. So anyway, yeah, it's a really nice game, isn't it? It's so many deep
Yeah,
concepts.
just like lock it down and then just attack. And he just had like that, I guess, extra move or something, or like where, wait, misplayed. What did White do wrong again?
Well, basically G3. But
Yeah,
the thing is, like, again, Kasparov's attacker's advantage notion. And again, prophylactic move. You don't
Yeah,
know,
that
like, you don't
H6.
have to know every conceivable way that White can play here. But we don't want to know. We don't want to find out. Let's just move our king away and not
Mhm.
because we're humans, and even a computer would see a lot of murkiness here. Probably would just take it a lot of processing work to figure it out. So let's do a kind of heuristic there. Let's just not give him the option, and then we finish him off. But yeah, then they blundered clearly with G3. But the computer saying the best move here is take. Right, yeah, because the moment you don't take back with the pawn, like right now, oh yeah, it likes G3, certainly. Yeah, let's see what happens. I'm curious. If they go here, does the sack work? Probably it does. Maybe sack, then queen comes in next. Probably queen can follow through. Well, you're threatening. Oh, the idea of the lateral queen movement, it doesn't actually do anything because you still mate them because this king is smothered. Well, there's that G2 square then, right? They'd have to saying like, okay, saying minus 15. What's that? Well, now you're up what? Well, you're up in exchange right now, actually. They could try to survive, but they're not getting, they're in a mating net though. Oh, amazing. C4, double exclam again.
Oof.
And then you're coming in, threatening mate. The cool thing is, there might be some sacks. Okay, he goes, that's pretty bad if they have to go here. Yeah, I would just scoop up material, Wow, that's how bad it could be, right? Saying here.
Wow.
Oh, I think it was looking at taking here. No, I don't know what that is. No, on the next move. Yeah, we're just eating everything. So yeah, you don't have to mate right away. Well, you can have fun just eating all the pieces and then creating this unstoppable mating net. But yeah. So you certainly like this idea. You can just keep that in mind. That's another way to go.
Instead
when you
of
push, it makes it more palatable to take because then the pawn doesn't take back. So you should do it when you can. That's what actually Fischer said about his game. He said that, he's like, he did G4 too. Same thing. He's like, I could have gone H5. But he did H5, it transposed. But you want to have you want to have that mix. And then ideally you take back with your pawn, and there you go again. Well, then Todd, you might not move your king. Then you might be like, hey, I'm just coming on the H file, and like, then we have ideas of like a queen sack and rook mate, right? Quarter mate, stuff like that. So anyway, you see a lot of ideas, but the way he just blows up and everything. And White, yeah, certainly his opponent then helped him with that one move, but he was already crushing him. Even if the computer finds a defense, again, for all practical purposes, it was very hard to defend.
instead of White bringing its rook over to F1, would it have been better off bringing its knight into the defense?
Yeah, it's like I see Karpov doing that a lot, where the knight will defend. there, I still think let's say like, okay, when are we gonna do that? Like maybe right now? Wait, when did he go rook F1? Like, right? Like, oh, when he went here. So, well, the thing is he got congested now. That's where that's where this becomes very strong. He's so congested. So like you're saying, maybe here?
I didn't have a specific time in mind, but I was just
Right.
thinking the knight would be more helpful on F1 instead of the rook,
Yeah.
the A rook when it came over to F1.
Yeah, because the only purpose is, well, there's the counterattack purpose, but he dealt with that very nicely. And the knight covers H2, which as we see is going to be very tragic for him. So it's like, hey, if you want to go here, I can maybe just ignore it. And maybe, but that way at least Queen H4 doesn't threaten mate. He's like, okay, worst comes to worst, you take me with the pawn. I just kind of, that is a defensive technique. It's covered in Soltis's Art of Defense in Chess, where you just stay there and you're like, okay, you just take it. And funny enough, actually, I saw that happen in Lloyd's game, Malcolm. Remember in Lloyd's game when he got did you see the point where he got a pawn in front of her king? So she just, so she's like, it was very dangerous for her, but it was good. She was smart to not take it because she actually used it as her own block. Because the only thing is the pawn, the danger is if it covers like G1, but if you can't do anything on G1, hey, at least it's like a blockade for you, right? So that's an interesting concept that she used. I thought he had to win anyway. That's beside the point. It looked very strong, right? But still, at least she was able to hold it off. Like that's a concept that that white, just in general, that white can do that, or whoever's being attacked with the G pawn coming in and stuff. But yeah, I think you're probably right. Let's just a quick sample line with the computer, you get a sense. It says -2. So again, just very, no matter what's happening, he's going to have just a huge initiative. And then, well, it says the knight has to give it up. I mean, oh, F3 is coming again. Let's just say random move. Oh, here comes the knight. Yeah, let's bring our knight in to the party. Now we have 5 there already. Well, I mean, the pawns, it's a pawn, but it's kind of like, okay, that's a huge attacker though. Like not the H pawn. That'll take a while. That's actually a potential. But we want to work in front of the H pawn here. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We can have, and the bishop, well, the bishop's important because it stabilizes the center. Now, keep in mind, if your center is able to be counterattacked, your wing attack is less likely to work. AlphaZero figured that out through its, machine learning. It realized we'd often like trade in the center, keep it locked, and then it would go straight for the, the H pawn, shove the H pawn or even the A pawn. And it realized some of these concepts, obviously, it was so strong, so powerful with the neural network, kind of thinking like a super powered human. So Rook A more conceptually. Yeah, and then great move, king here. But even again, we've talked about just a brief review. So we talked, so again, dark squares. Yeah, and I guess, is it the best move to take? I guess so. Yeah, if it were me, I'd definitely consider knight d4. Oh yeah, the bishop's hanging. No, you can't do knight d4. That's why it's a good move. So you don't give him time. But all else being equal, if the bishop were here, then I would do knight d4 and then maybe play for f4. But yeah, he didn't give him a chance. So he takes, and then he strikes at it. And then I really like this trend. And then immediately he shows the foresight. He makes a good, and again, like if we just take the pawn, kind of gives white a lot of counterplay. Well, it certainly gives an attack on the E file. The bishop becomes a little less fixed in place. So once he does this and eventually plays bishop d6, I love that move. Yeah, it's a great move. See that in Roy Lopez sometimes for both sides, like h3, knight h2, knight g4. So he's kind of mixing this concept, but sort of in a King's, it's become, King's Indian. So, I mean, whatever opening it is, you'll see a lot of the same concepts because we do have e4, e5 pawns and stuff. Just different structure, but you'll see similarities in planning. And then it's done. Yeah, he just finished it in style. Okay, that was cool. So now the next one, and the next one was just a nice, kind of just a smooth winning a piece. And he had to be very accurate. Okay, you guys have any thoughts about that game? Any final thoughts or questions?
I had one quick question. I'm sorry, I don't want to hold up time, but like in the
No, go ahead,
very beginning, very beginning, like when he played c6.
Yeah, knight c6 or pawn c6.
Pawn c6. Like
So
just
kind of like, yeah, coming out of the opening.
yeah, like right
Yeah,
here.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
yeah.
So white takes, why not?
Oh, well, it would give black an isolated pawn.
Yeah.
But it would also lose his D pawn. It's interesting. I think he didn't want to lose his D pawn. Let's say he had taken. Now, if white takes, then black just takes the file. So we might kind of play chicken on the D file there. But yeah, structurally, it's not a bad choice for white. I mean, arguably you can try to attack. It'll be hard, but that is not pawn. So it's kind of either you have a space advantage,
And the bishop here.
but it actually keeps the white pieces at bay. No knight d5. And what else?
And black has the bishop pair, I guess, and maybe. Oh no, the white does too. Sorry, I just saw the black bishop up there. I missed
Maybe-
him.
That's cool. Maybe, yeah, I think I agree. It's always useful. Like, I don't look at stockfish for everything, but just to kind of confirm your ideas. Like, let's see if white should have taken. It agrees with you. Yeah, it says white's more comfortable, a little edge. But yeah, that's what they should have done. Whereas after, now you don't know what the computer will say after the pushes. See, it wants to take, or it finds something crazy. It actually is like, wait, what? It's like hang the E pawn. Oh, because it wants to go like, see, that's just like computer move. It wants to
Yeah,
hang,
that's
it
computer.
wants to chase the bishop and then, yeah, that looks very weird. I wouldn't do, what is this? And
Yeah,
it sees some crazy line that most human, like a human wouldn't really find. Oh wait, okay, I don't even know what is going on. And then it's going to win the pawn back after the fact. I mean, yeah, it's just like very loose. Oh, black has the lead in development, but it's very loose. It's a very strange situation. So that's a good example. So I was like, oh, well, the computer gave us some ideas. Well, you can see what it thinks after c5. It I guess it likes white's space advantage so far. It's like quite a tiny bit. Whatever. We're not going to look at the computer. No,
Yeah,
but
yeah. Forget
no, but
computer.
like,
I was
but
just
it's the
thinking-
concept. Like, you have to, if you make the single computer moves, like, I mean, those moves are like one move at a time, right?
Right,
It's-
right.
The human narrative is more important. Like when he showed this narrative, and then he kept gaining ground, and that's the story.
Yeah,
And yeah, here it's saying it like it's starting to like black slightly better. And then it says black. Here it actually says black's already basically winning. So yeah, really nice game. Beautiful game, a lot of ideas.
Really nice attack.
Yeah, okay. And a good example of closed positions. Okay, so you guys ready for the next one?
Yes.
All right, so the next one. See, this is where the rating's way different. Probably a different time control, different website. One's chess.com, one's Leah Chess. Okay, so there you go. Philidor's defense, old defense. Well, Philidor is 1700 from the 1700s, I think, right? So yeah, it's an old defense. Goes way back. And sometimes it's nice to kind of revive some of those. So d6, c6 idea. And again, this can be played with g6 sometimes. Like, for example, against in a d4, c4 opening, especially in a king's, and like, again, old Indian, as we go here and against d4, this is more modern. But the thing about bringing your bishop to e7, again, I view it like similar. Philidor against e4, and then old Indian against d4. But in both cases, you have this pawn chain and bishop goes to e7. Now, the more modern stuff would be bishop g7, but keep in mind, it does take a little more time. And here you can also do the knight g6 stuff to f4. So f4 square is very strategic to use for the knight, to embed your knight, right? So yeah, that way you have it, you don't block with the pawn, but the pawn move is useful to help you play f5 sometimes. So anyway, but now he also has d5. So he has b5 and a5, so it's very rich position. Even though black, like, it's kind of unassuming, right? Like, looks very compact, but black can certainly strike. Oh, wait, is this? Oh, wait, is that the? Oh, no, it's a different game. It's actually a very similar start though. But
Yeah,
it became a totally different game. No, well, see, in the other game, they took back. It was a little different. They didn't play because as you just showed us, Nick, you played c6 later. So they're going, oh, well, they're going for like a fry liver kind of thing. But this was nice. He saw this. It didn't work out for them. Okay, what's the correct move here? So
Bye, Malcolm.
from here on, very precise. See you, Malcolm. Thanks for coming in and sharing your thoughts.
I'm out, David. I'm gonna thank you for your lesson and your time. It was great to go over that game of Diego's.
Yeah, that's my favorite game that I've seen. When I want to look at more of them. Well, what I'm going to do is you know what I'm going to do real quick. Here, I put these two in here so far in this study. I'm going to make it public now, but I wanted to add more games first. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it up. You want to open it real quick. That's the game right there. So you can access it. Oh, sorry. And then all I got to do is change it to public. Yeah. So now, at least when I started, I didn't want to make it public yet. Yeah. So you guys can access it through the chat.
Thank you.
But yeah, thanks so much for coming, Malcolm, and sharing your thoughts. That was fun.
Thank you for your time.
Oh,
Take
thank
care.
you. All right. Take care.
Malcolm, have a good one.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, it was nice that you dropped in. So takes knight g5, d5. So, sorry, I wasn't going to show you. But yeah, but it's straightforward, right? It's like, hey, you want to come into, that's actually the only good way to deal with it, right? There's really no other way to do it. It's like a fried liver attack, but it's not. They're hoping for a fried liver attack, but No, it's interesting. It's because of the inclusion of C6. Little addition of C6 makes it so this just doesn't work at all. So he strikes back, and now he can take back, and they get to check him. But you notice in this whole maneuver that they're doing, let me put it back on the screen share over there. But this whole maneuver wastes time. See, because now we have 2 pieces out, and then it's our 3rd piece coming out. So they basically wasted time, and we could play H6 again, or we could just not play. Sometimes you just don't even play H6, and you're like, all right, if I play H6, then, well, it sort of cancels out. But you sometimes don't play H6. You're like, you know what? I'm okay with your knight being there, being loose sometimes, and it
Just make
doesn't.
them feel stupid.
Yeah, and also, but also tactically, like let's say the knight moves, you can expose the knight.
Mhm.
I mean, they might try something like a fishing, what do you call them, fishing pole attack? or
Fishbowl, yeah.
Yeah, those are fun. Well, actually, Ding did in the last game of there.
Yes,
Ding did that, right? With the 14th game, I think.
that was
Right?
so cool.
That was kind of cool. It didn't really work, but I gave him some attack.
Yeah, I
But-
think he took it anyway. Jan took it.
took
I
the
don't
piece?
remember, and then gave it back or something on his terms. It was pretty
Yeah,
cool.
it ended up being like pretty equal after that, but at least he tried.
Yeah.
Give him points for trying. But yeah, but here, he's fearlessly, just like objectively, fearlessly playing, moving forward, and just just developing. And now, because look at the time that he had to waste though, because they went C3 is we okay, cancel out C3 C6, right? Now takes, okay, so we spend a move taking, they spend a move moving the knight, we spend a move pushing the pawn, they spend a move taking, so that cancels out. So we both kind of wasted and not spent one move. They check though, they had to move the bishop again. And then we don't, so they're moving an already developed piece, we're moving an undeveloped piece, they're having to take back. So again, the other move canceled out. And then after all is said and done, basically the knight move was wasted effectively. And then that passed, and then now it's as if we have the white pieces with the extra move. And yeah, we could certainly still play H6, they go back, and then again, the move cancels out. But as long as we're not getting mated, I actually don't mind the knight being on G5. Oh yeah, I was gonna move it back, sorry. So I have this thing on the side. But yeah, I certainly don't mind the knight being on G5. Let's see what he does. Okay, so they voluntarily take it. Well, just like in the previous game, it's interesting to see C6 pawn again. That was pretty weak it was weaker in that line because it was isolated. Again, not easily exploitable, but here you can't really reach it. And we have a knight. Oh, look at that. Bishop A6.
Yeah.
It's like in a French, when they take on C3 and the Winover variation. And then, like have pawn on a like C2 and then you have the pawn chain and the pawn takes and the bishop goes to A3. You guys know what I'm talking about in French? Because black has given up so basically I have that again, going back to that Lynn, I remember we talked about that a while ago last year, the uncontested bishop, or maybe from 2021. I've been here for a while, right?
Right.
Solid student, yeah, coming in. We were just talking about that earlier. So great to have you keep coming back. Yeah, you guys all add so much to the class. So but yeah, so taking here, and it's the uncontested bishop now. And so if we get there in time, they're not castling either, but just having that bishop. So and keep in mind, sometimes you can take on these static weaknesses for dynamic strengths. We did I have a study on that actually from some of those games, from GM games. Static weakness, dynamic strength. And you can play C5, but hey, white has one too. So we have a backward currently. Well, it can move. So it's not like a lockdown, but technically temporarily backward pawn that could be attacked with the C file. And they have an isolated D pawn. And again, and that one too, it's not like fully bad because it's worse if it's on a half up in file. Ours is, but but we can push it too. Hasn't been locked down like in the immortal, then they call it like the immortal backward pawn or something. The game by Rubinstein, 1907 or something against Solway. I think it was Polish players, Poland and Warsaw, I think. But look up that game by Rubinstein, famous backward pawn game. But that pawn he locks down on C6. So castles. Okay, hey, great. We didn't even have to play H6. So they waste another move. So you see, this is where he's building his advantage. And so he goes 94. So you can see, yeah, again, like his opponent ends up airing at one point, but that's largely attributable to these these leading to development he's getting, the pressure he's getting, and that's sort of, you can say, psychological, where the more pressure you have, the more likely your opponent is to make a mistake, right? Knight goes to E5. Okay, so we both stick our knights, and there you go, he's looking at C6. But then this is the knight. So So the knight belongs on e4, right? And you could play, yeah, bishop f5. Oh, wait, well, you have a pin. This reminds me of the Russian or Petrov defense, actually. You get the knight coming in, and f5, black can do f5, bishop f5. But we also have this pin. That'd be a nice pin to do. They want to go let's say they do something random, like let's just say, I don't know, like a3 or whatever. If you go here and then if they go h3, you come back, that's very weakening, right?
Mhm.
So we're going to start harvesting those weaknesses in there. Maybe you could play f5 or probably h5 is typical, maybe even f5. No, yeah, maybe. Even here, it's typical. And then you can start looking here, shift your bishop here. F4 square is weak. Yeah, it's bad. F3 knights loose, h3 pawns loose, king's more exposed. That's why they often do the typical treatment here is to go like move the h pawn to crack it. Especially, of course, if your rook is here, then that's very strong. Try to overextend it, start striking at h3, maybe then you f6. So yeah, anyway, it's just fundamentally weakening, but also because it's closer to you, it's easier to strike at and open up lines. So he has that idea as well. So his opponent probably seeing that, well, natural move, counterattacks c6 and doesn't allow bishop g4. So we saw that where in the previous game where Diego didn't allow bishop g5. Same idea. Okay, now this is very tempting, bishop f4, but it fails. Suddenly so it's interesting. He walks into this line, but now he finds just the right move, natural move, but he carries it out perfectly. And first of all, the way he handled the threats against f7 and so forth, gets his lead in development. Now what? Oh, and he has the bishop pair, which is, his opponent gave him that. He'll take it in this position, lots of open lines. Okay, now what's the natural move to do next?
Can he just move bishop to d3 and then chases
Yep, exactly. Well, no, and he actually is threatening knight g6. See? Because knight g6 would unleash the bishop, discovered attack, simultaneously, the typical tactic, right? Guarding the bishop, and then he'll just like take the exchange. If you assume, yeah, you're gonna like still guard the bishop somewhere, but then he'll just take the exchange. So that is a threat. And you go bishop d6, very natural move, but it's actually kind of inexorable now. You just have like pressure on the diagonal, and beautifully placed knight. Again, his knight is here, but we're threatening f6 now, right? As Todd said, it's just a threat. No more knight g6 stuff, right? We're covering, but just great diagonal. But really, I don't think there might not be a defense. It probably, no, they can't move the knight to guard it. They probably need to try something like queen f3 if they see what's coming. I'm not sure if that's adequate. Yeah, well, the goal would be to bring the knight to c3. So I'm not sure if that's enough. But if they see it coming, they have to at least try this.
Dave, what about in that position when he brings his queen out, the white queen? Like go bishop takes knight, and okay, it may not work.
He gets that
takes
tempo.
with the pawn, but if he takes with the bishop, then you could fork. The knight could go to d2.
We're not there. Why are we not there yet? Why can't it's an idea, but we can't do it? Why isn't it?
Yeah, because the pawn could take. So
yeah, he hasn't developed the knight. So we can't do it yet. It's a good idea, but
right.
Yeah, once he develops the knight.
But at this point, he could go f3 and then win the bishop, right?
Yeah, that's what he was able to do. But again, and I really like it for the follow through as well. Like this is very natural. It's great though. I mean, it's very, very strong play. In some ways, just straightforward play, right? But then the way he cleans up is nice. So bishop e6, knight c3, just good.
After bishop to d6, could white go g3? So that the knight's not pinned anymore, and
right, that's probably similar. Actually, it might be a concession. He might be giving a concession there. That's complicated. Yeah, g3 at least. Yeah, I think queen f3 might be easier, but g3 maybe there's g5. It looks a little sketchy.
Yeah, G5,
But technically, it does weaken. I mean, we even have like bishop h3. That's a really strong bit because it's the uncontested. Yeah, that's gonna be dangerous too, right? But yeah, arguably, at least it's an attempt. But yeah, I think queen f3 is easier, right? Because it doesn't loosen it. But what about g5? I don't know. It's quite interesting too. Because if the bishop moves, we just win a pawn. Yeah, it's kind of a weird situation. Like, what if they counter you? I don't know what is going on.
Oh my goodness,
Them,
this is
they
crazy.
take you, but then actually your king's open. Never mind. I don't like that. Then our king's open too. There must be something. Actually, that's kind of interesting. There must be something there. F3. Oh wait, what if you take it? It's kind of murky. Yeah, that's because that way what they're trying to do is pull the knight away from the protection of this one. So maybe that's the adequate response.
Is F6 like completely ridiculous?
No, actually, I just thought about that. Yeah. Well, then they have two pieces hanging. Wait, they take you. But then after you take some, no, not here because then the bishop takes g5. Okay, what if you take here? Now they have to react. But oh, this is cool because you're going to take g3. You probably win a pawn out of it. Oh, and this is hanging. Yeah, I think he went a pawn, or we're equal pawns currently, right? 2 bishops for 2 knights. But the opening of the position, well, this is crazy because our king is open, but you could play king h8. There's that prophylactic move. Rook g8's coming. The bishops, it's super messy, but this is very interesting.
Yeah, very messy.
No, if they go there, you actually take with tempo on the knight, and then another tempo if you want. Well, then they probably go here. No, but well, you can play this though. Yeah, you're just crashing through. I think this might be winning. Well, it's very messy, but the bishops are certainly happy here. Oh, and also they need to bring out the knight and the rook. You can, again, you could very quickly, swiftly come in with the bishop. And again, if you need to, king h8. Well, that's going to happen. Yeah, I think black is, does the computer find something? No, it says -5. Yeah, winning position. Anyway, it's just that's the sample line. But yeah, maybe you've, is that the best move? No, it says actually even this is winning. It's so but this is, it says this is very, oh yeah. It says -3.5, -4.2. So basically it's moved, right? It likes your move. Wait, listen.
Yeah, because once you move the F7 pawn, you open up the queen to slide on over to G.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Yeah.
black is definitely winning.
And the bishops, yeah.
Yeah, and the bishop.
Hey, as long as your knight's there. Wait, let's see here. No, it really is just liking the notion of taking. And let's say they take back. Aha. Well, it's sort of transposing, actually. It's almost transposing. If you had taken earlier on G, we just delayed taking. Wait, it says they have to lose the piece. Aha. All of your ideas are coming to fruition. There's your move, Lynn. So Nikki, Lynn, you got good teamwork there.
Let's play in a doubles, Lynn.
And then, oh, that's weird. Yeah. So then you take, oh, it doesn't matter because this is hanging. I mean, if they want to trade queens, I think we're winning that endgame. That's funny. They don't want to trade, but you can certainly win. You can certainly take, and then that's said minus. Oh yeah, let's throw in the check for good measure, and then let's take the pawn back, and we're up a piece. 2 bishops against the knight. Okay, that's easy, right? Anyway, maybe there's some mating line like massive. It's kind of like in the previous game where he had this mating lines as well as winning material. So anyway, yeah. Oh, G5 is the best move, it says. Interesting. So there's your, and then going back to Saul's question. Now is Queen F3 the best move? So G3 is met by G5, which is messy, but it works. What about Queen F3? Is there something? G5 is winning.
Wow.
Amazing. Why is it winning? I don't know. It's complicated. Oh, well, now you can't touch it. Right. And then if you get F4 in, then you just win the pawn. Do you not? It's saying rook b8, but we can, why not? But we can probably take, can't we? Yeah, it's saying minus. It really wants rook, fine, why not? Okay, so they guard it. We just take the pawn back. It really doesn't want this pawn. I don't, okay, is it good enough? I think it's good enough. It says -2.5. I'm just gonna get a sense. Well, what about b3 now? Ooh, that's nasty.
Oh,
Ooh, that's a crushing. It says minus. See, the computer is very drastic in this.
Yeah.
It says -8. But it will obviously no. But the thing is, you're winning material, and it's a crushing position. So
yeah.
You got the center. Look at this pawns. You got the
That
center.
knight's going nowhere.
Steamrolling. That's blocked. You can probably win that whenever you want. You got pin. The bishop's out. Yeah, it's just dominant. Well, you'll probably win the exchange. But yeah, they have the knights. Right. Ooh.
Bishop's going nowhere. Oh yeah, I
Wait.
guess the knight goes somewhere.
Oh, you even have this move now because you can't take back.
Oof,
Oh, that's nasty. Double check.
they're so fancy.
Check again. Oh, well, yeah, the computer does that weird stuff sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes it repeats and you're like, it says it's winning and you're like, well, what's going
then
on?
it
Why isn't
really-
it saying
then it
like a
really-
different move?
Right, they don't need that. Now you're up in exchange and pawns and stuff. Anyway, it's just, I'm just using the computer for a quick sample line, really, but it kind of verifies like, oh yeah, G5 is actually legit. Because when I'm looking, I'm like, does that work? It's a little loose, but it does work. So I wouldn't have known that had I not checked. Right? So, but now with knight C3, but the thing is now he keeps it nice and clean. He just takes it, and then what's next?
F6.
Yeah, but again, the idea is that knight C3 fails, queen F3 fails, G3 fails. I think though it said the only move is knight E2 somehow, but that's pretty, again, so it says that black is slightly better if they find that, but that's a computer move. So for all intents and purposes, it's very strong. So takes, bishop pair, lead in development, and F6 wins the knight. So winning position. And again, but look at the way he finishes. So, okay, of course you take it, and when they take back, okay, what's a nice clean move now? Well, actually, you probably don't have too many options, but no, I mean, not necessarily. You've won the knight for a pawn, right? Now you have some choices. What's your best move?
I play rook takes bishop.
Yeah, rook takes bishop.
You let them, so you take them, they take you. Now, interestingly, it seems like when you look at it a bit more, like you start to think, wait, I have to be careful. But
Right,
when you
right.
keep looking,
right.
takes, they have the rook check. But the thing is, if you move, well, it actually wins the pawn though. Because if you're afraid, no, but that's the thing, like you have to make these, Fischer was great at that. Well, you make so-called ugly moves, like moves that don't look good. In this case, it's more a cold-blooded move, like a move that allows this scary looking check.
Well, G5 would really work, with the pawn. That would work because, your rook would still be in place and you won't get back made away. And then you could bring your queen over as well. And then you got the bishop, sitting there. But
you don't even need it. You're not getting mated though. Yeah, that's the thing. You just need to see it objectively. Like I'm not getting mated. I'm fine. But if you're kind of like shying away from that, then you're like, oh, okay. They move their bishop back, and white has a little bit of competition. So again, it's just going to take you longer. But the way that he finished this series of trades, like it's like simplify in a way, just like just simplify a few pieces, and it's like, okay, there's nothing left, right? Oh, then were you adding anything else? Sorry.
No.
Okay, okay. But yeah, but in this case, it's like you're indirectly taking, well, it's like you're taking here, but you take the bishop first, he takes, you take. So now are we up a pawn, 2, 4, 5? No, we have equal pawns now. Got our pawn back. Now we're up a whole bishop. But now check. What do you just keep it simple? What do you do?
Block.
Just block. Yeah. So the bad thing, but then finally it goes here. And I like this move too. Well, if you take on E8, the queen comes in. I don't know. I mean, you have to go back, but again, very clean finish. What's a nice way to finish your development?
Somewhere with the bishop. I'm not sure yet.
Yep.
Oh, here.
Just keep it very simple. You want bishop D7. So all that simple chess. It's like, hey, look, let me just not give you anything. Bishop D7.
Oh, that's nice.
Back. They don't want to trade, so they go back. And then once again, simple move just to finish this off. And rook E8, rook A8. And then he resigns. They resign. Why not? But it's nice because it seems like, okay, not that much is going on, but still, like, if you don't do the right move order, I don't know. I mean, like, again, if you move the bishop away, this is kind of annoying, right? And then they can like push their pawn, can move the king, like push the pawns or something. So that pawn's very annoying. So
they could probably prolong the game a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. No, they can certainly prolong it. But after this happens, well, then, okay, they're like, okay, never mind. I'm not going to trade rooks. That's not good. And then you're like, okay, yeah, they want to be able to come with the queen. Oh, actually, no, that could be sort of problematic. Because again, here, if you play it wrong, because if you get tempted to trade, okay, now they take C6 and and then they eat this with check. And then now they got 2 pawns for a piece. Certainly prolonged, right?
Right.
Yeah. So anything could happen. You could still mess it up. But then he goes bishop D7, doesn't need to worry about it. They don't want to trade. I mean, if they do take A8, okay, they pull your rook in the corner. Then you simply come back and you have 3 centralized pieces. But then he just resigns. They just resign after rook A8 because like they have to trade now as the pin and then take back with tempo. And there's just nothing to do. Just coming in, you could like centralize and come in or something and, see maybe bishop C6 and open the diagonal. Just get the bishop out somewhere, yeah, you're just using all your forces. I'd probably just start like doubling, and you can make, again, a little prophylactic move, maybe. Yeah, I mean, no, you're fine. You're already covering light squares. You don't have to worry about checks. So it's important though. It's just, the thing is, the idea is like you want to make your end game as simple as possible. Yes, you should have really good end game technique, but you want to have the right transition. So you just make your life easier, right? If you're gonna go with yeah, otherwise, you're just gonna be in for a rough time, and there's no need for that. Just trade into a great end game. So a lot of it's about like understanding the structure and seeing deeply ahead of time. And then once you're there, you can transition effectively into the end game. And then once it's right in front of you, just make this solid move by move, the move that just really takes away any counterplay that they have, really. And simply the simple chess is simplified in this case. So some of it's very sophisticated, and other times you don't need to be too fancy, right? You just play the moves that the board calls for, and nothing messy about that. But it could have been messy if you didn't do that. You guys have any questions about that one?
No,
No, that was a nice, clean win.
yeah, nice.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I
straightforward.
think. That's what I think. Yeah, the other very different kinds of games. The other
Yes.
game was a lot of back and forth murkiness, but he did tie his opponent down, and ultimately he got the right breakthrough and they collapsed. In this case, it was tricky because like there was only one move. He had a lot of pressure, but it's like little nuances of it though. The way that he dealt with the threat on F7, and then he didn't even bother with the B bishop and the G5 knight. He just kind of ignored them. He's like, okay, go ahead and take me. Well, they figured it's kind of like your idea, Nikki, of taking C6 in the previous game, although this was a worse version of it. This was a worse because they're trying.
Yeah.
Well, basically they're voluntarily doing it to give him the weak pawn. I'm sure the computer prefers black here. Yep, minus 0.6, just to kind of give you just a little reassurance from the called like the silicon beast, right? It gives a little reassurance. Not that you should read into it too much, but again, it's just like useful. Like, oh no, it's more so like you look at it, you're like, oh wait, what? It's +1 here. Then it's like, okay, I'm not just gonna buy it at face value, but I'll look at it and be like, oh, I see why. So at least it'll show you, you have to make sure you verify it, but at least it'll be useful in showing you, oh yeah, I totally missed that. And then
Like follow the little line down. Like that's usually what I'll do. Like if I see something and it's like completely, it's saying it's totally losing move. I'm like, why? And then you just follow it a little bit just to see why. And then yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, as long as really a huge part of being a strong chess player is being curious, which certainly Diego was, and like I said, he's just explored so many things. I mean, he was exploring Islam and like different versions of it, and like traveling, so like he explored, I mean, not just that, but like everything, right? Exploring, there's so many aspects of life. But and in terms of your success for life and then for chess, which could be a big part of your life, certainly for a lot of, or a good comparison, like good analogy. But yeah, your curiosity will start, because curiosity is what drives your calculation trees. That's the thing. You can't just be like, oh, I hate doing these calculation trees. No, you sort of have to want, well, it's not the tree itself, but it's that you want to arrive at the truth of the position. What is the correct move? Well, I'm only going to know what the correct move is again, well, first there's your intuitive understanding of the position, but that informs everything, but that needs to be backed up by hard calculation. It's like you do your tactics, that's very hard calculation, but then like in any position, you have to be calculating. It might be a tactic embedded. So you have to do your calculation, make sure you're not missing something, right? And to make sure that, when you look at your two options, like, okay, let me look at, every not conceivable, every reasonable option that my opponent can reply with. And that's going to make your calculation tree. But you got, so really at the heart of it is your curiosity. Oh, what's my opponent trying to do? What's their actual best move? What would be my best move there? So it's this intellectual exercise. So they're sort of mathematical, but you're combining your spatial understanding, you're combining your strategic understanding. We focus a lot on pawn structure, on maximizing your forces, minimize. Again, I'm really into that. Maximize your forces, minimize their forces. Well, you're trying to create an initiative. One initiative, you better start pressing forward and don't let them press forward, right? So it's kind of at the heart of an initiative, but that's tied to space advantage. It's kind of space time, right? Space time of chess, right? So you got the time as your tempos, and space. Well, as you do so, you're pressing. So anyway, that's some of the things that he's doing. Some of the things embedded.
Okay, thank you. Bye, everybody.
See you, Len. Thanks for coming.
All right,
Thanks
Len.
for your great thoughts there. All right. So yeah, anyway, I'm going on a tangent now. But there's a lot there. Yeah. But anyway, my idea is the concept is curiosity, which he clearly had, but you can see that that will lead to good lines. But yeah, he was, again, like Yeah, his rating, well, this one's 1300, 1800, but he was oh yeah, by the way, that was quick acceleration. So he just played in the other one. So yeah, certainly he gave me a really hard time. So he would have been up to expert to master level just as he kept refining his game. He worked on he was really into openings. I'm like, okay, focus on your strategic. I studied the positional chess as well. And he worked on that, and he focused a lot on end games then. So then he became a complete player. Then it's just a matter of, even if you're kind of trailing your rating, right? But by the time you reach 1500, you might be 1700 rating. By the time you reach 1700, you might be 2000 rating, right? So the rating isn't that important in that sense. It's kind of like with the interest rates, right? We see the impact. You got to wait 5 months, right? You see the impact coming to the economy, right? But yeah, it's trailing. So yeah. Anyway, really good stuff. Do you guys have any final thoughts or questions about the games?
Well, I'm really glad that you honored him with these games. I wish I knew him better. Only one time that he popped in, unfortunately, but he sounds like he was just, a real pioneer, I guess is a word.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And again, yeah, and he just really, speaking of taking the initiative, he really took the initiative with just everywhere he went. He left his mark. He started clubs and everything. And
Yeah, that's a leader.
And he would just literally take the initiative. He was very assertive, and like he wouldn't just like sit back. He's like, hey, I'm going to talk to this person. I'm going to find out, like, I'm going to go to this person's, for example, some of the professors were talking, like, I'm going to go to this person's office hours. I'm going to talk to him for a while, and I'm not just going to, again, his curiosity, his passion for life.
Yeah, go get
I'm
her.
not just going to, go get it. Right. Exactly. Like, I'm just going to like wonder what this person's like. I'm going to get to know them. And so he really did that, and then got to know him as well. So some, be vulnerable and have some good conversations about life. So, but yeah, I'm definitely, thank you. Really, I've been meaning to do it for a while. So I'm glad that we were able to do it. Look at some of his, well, and there's a lot more. There are, of course, a lot more awesome games. So what I'm going to do then to branch off this, to keep building on this, is I'm just going to look a little more. I'll just delve through some more of his games. These are some more recent ones that is appropriate as he's getting better and better. But I'll look at some other ones, and I'll probably get like 5 or 6 in there at least. So I'll
Yeah, maybe you could do a part 2.
Yeah, maybe we'll do part 2 later. So yeah.
Okay. Bye, John.
Bye,
All right,
guys.
I'm gonna go too. Thank you so much, David. Bye, everybody.
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's
Okay,
great to
take
meet
care.
you, Saul, for the first time. Glad you came out for this one. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Did you get something out of it?
Quite a bit. Yeah, it's great.
Cool. Glad you came. And Todd's been, John comes every week, and Todd, I know you came a lot and you took a break. So it's good glad you came back for this one.
And my son tagged along for the end. He enjoyed listening in.
Oh, he heard about toward the end, the simplification and stuff. He was there for that part.
Yep. Yeah, he saw the knight get pinned to the bishop. He enjoyed it.
Oh yeah. And then we saw how tricky it was. Here, I'll stop the recording now, but thanks, guys.